Hi, my name is Robert, and for this video, we'll be talking about how skimming and scanning actually wastes time. Now, I can already imagine some of you raising your eyebrows thinking, what? Skimming and scanning waste time? No, not at all. It saves time. In fact, that's the fastest way to finish the reading test. If you don't skim and scan, then you won't be able to finish the reading test at all. And I'm going to explain in this video why that doesn't usually apply and why, at the end of the day, you may think you're saving time when in fact you're actually wasting a lot of time skimming and scanning. Let's use OET Reading Part A as an example. And in Reading Part A, you have 4 texts and 20 questions to answer. And all of that needs to be done in 15 minutes. Now, what most students will do, they'll look at question number 1 and then skim and scan for the keywords in text A, text B, text C, and text D, then answer number 1. Then they'll move on to number 2 and then skim for the keyword questions in text A, B, C, and D. And they'll do the exact same thing. They'll look at number 3 and now skim and scan text A, B, C, and D. Then for number 4, they'll once again skim and scan text A, B, C, and D. Then for number 5, skim and scan text A, B, C, and D. Number 6, skim and scan text A, B, C, and D. And then 7, A, B. Oh my God. Can you imagine how much time you are spending skimming and scanning? And how many times do you plan to reread and skim and scan text A, B, C, and D? If there are 20 questions, don't tell me you're planning to skim and scan these 4 passages 20 times, because that sounds like a waste of time. And it's probably the reason why you are not finishing the test within 15 minutes. So, you might wonder that, because you're reading faster, you're saving time, when in reality, the speed is just causing you to reread the same thing again and again and again. And what if the keywords you're skimming and scanning for are paraphrased or changed? Then chances are you won't find the keyword and you'll end up having to reread again and again and again. So for me personally, I think skimming and scanning really is a waste of time. There's a much better way to go about the test. And guys, please let's remember this is not a speed reading test. Whether it's OET, IELTS, or any reading test for that matter, what they're always testing for is comprehension. They're testing whether you understand what you're reading. They're checking whether you understand the meaning of the words in the passage. They're not going to check how fast you read. No one really cares. All they care about is, hey, you understand what you read, you pass. You don't understand what you read, you fail. It's that simple. So, what is the way that saves time for me at least? Well, as I mentioned, in Part A, you'll have 4 different texts, A, B, C, and D. And you'll be given 20 different questions to answer. Now, in my style, I don't really look at the questions. I just focus on reading and understanding one text at a time. Such as this one, talking about how Norovirus is a virus that is commonly known as the vomiting bug. Because vomiting is the main symptom. Interesting. It also causes diarrhea and it cannot be treated with antibiotics. Most people do not have norovirus for very long, but it can lead to complications in children, sick people, and elderly people. Norovirus spreads easily by eating food or drinking liquids that are contaminated with norovirus, touching surfaces or objects contaminated with norovirus, and then placing their hand in their mouth, having direct contact with another person who is infected and showing symptoms, for example, when caring for someone with illness, or sharing food or eating utensils when someone is ill. So these sound like the ways you can get norovirus. It turns out hand washing is the best way to stop norovirus from starting. It must be done with soap and water, not alcohol gels. Alcohol gels do not stop the spread of norovirus. Sounds pretty familiar. Now, after you've read and understood an entire text, then just look at the questions and see which ones you can answer. For 1 to 7, we're checking whether number 1 was mentioned in text A, and I didn't read anything about the signs of dehydration in babies, so we'll skip that. But we did read something about how norovirus is transmitted. It's usually through food, through liquids, through sharing utensils, so I'm going to type A for this question. Next, hand hygiene procedure. This has been mentioned. You have to use soap and water, not alcohol gel, so I'm going to put text A here yet again. What people can eat if they have norovirus has not yet been mentioned yet. Cleaning surfaces has not been mentioned yet. Either have the tests or how long a person with norovirus might stay at home. So I was able to answer number 2 and number 3 without skimming and scanning. I can just cross it out because we don't need to answer it again. For number 8, what is the most vital activity for people to do if they do have norovirus? Has not been mentioned yet. The majority of people have norovirus. Of how long has not been mentioned. There has been no mention of a heart rate in text A. I haven't seen any medical term for feeling sick. But the best indicator that a person has norovirus, we've seen this actually. It turns out that when we look at the main symptom, it's usually vomiting. Or they say it's always vomiting. That's why it's called the vomiting bug. So I'm going to copy paste that here. What hospital treatment is like has not yet been mentioned. What should hands be washed with, however, has been mentioned. The answer is with soap and water. Very simple, very easy. Didn't even have to skim and scan. Next up, a person may need a blank to see if they have an electrolyte imbalance. Has not yet been mentioned. A person with norovirus might have aching whatever. Has not yet been mentioned. I haven't seen anything about a doctor seeing a child, so we'll skip that. I haven't seen anything about what people with norovirus can eat either, so we'll skip it. Norovirus can lead to more serious conditions in children, blank or blank people. This sounds familiar. I think that matches the children here with sick people. So that's the first keywords I'll put in this blank. Or elderly people, which seems to fit the blank down here. So very simple, very easy. Last one is an adult is probably dehydrated if I have blank blood pressure. No mention yet. So I've answered number 12. I've answered number 14 as well as number 19. Without having to skim and scan, I just read and understood this text. I wasn't even rushing when I read. I just read normally. And now I can just cross it out. I don't have to reread it ever again. I just read the text once, answer the questions related to that text, then I move on to another one. It saves so much time. Now here we're talking in text B about the signs and symptoms such as vomiting, being sick, nausea, which has the keyword feeling sick. And that reminds me of another keyword in the question. So as you read the questions, try to understand them also so that you can remember them. Because if you remember the keywords like feeling sick, then you can always go back to the question that has that word. Like here, it says here, feeling sick. And it's asking what is the medical term for feeling sick? I think it's this word here, nausea. So I'm going to copy paste it. And I didn't really skim and scan for it. I just saw it as I was normally reading and answered the question. Now we'll continue. Diarrhea, very loose, frequent bowel movements, high temperature, headache, aching arms and legs. Now the word aching sounds familiar. I remember a keyword here when I was reading a person with norovirus might have aching what? And the arms and legs seems like a good fit. So I'm not skimming and scanning, mind you. I'm just answering questions as I read normally, and it's pretty simple and easy. Now, managing norovirus, people with signs and symptoms of norovirus must stay at home until 24 hours after they had diarrhea or vomiting. People can eat anything they want, but it does not matter. Oh, I remember something about what can people with norovirus eat? I think that question is down here. People with norovirus can eat what? And the answer, apparently, interestingly enough, is anything. So that takes care of this question. Now, taking simple painkillers like paracetamol can ease fever and pain. To stop the spreading of the virus to everyone at the home, be very strict about washing your hands every time you go to the toilet, every time you vomit, before you prepare or handle food for others, every time you help someone with diarrhea or vomiting. And make sure to thoroughly clean toilet areas and food preparation surfaces using bleach-based household cleaners. Sounds familiar, and I think it's here, yeah. So for 1 to 7, we decide which text the point comes from. And cleaning surfaces is obviously mentioned in text B, so we're putting that here. And now we'll just continue reading. Immediately remove and wash clothing or linens that may be contaminated with virus after an episode of illness. Rest is very important to help get better. Drinking fluids is the most important thing people need to do if they have norovirus. So I'm going to highlight that because I remember this question. What is the most vital activity for people to do if they have norovirus? And the word vital is a paraphrase for the word important. So this one fits pretty well, but notice I didn't really skim and scan for it either. I just read it once and I got to answer number 8. Now, if a person does become very dehydrated, they may need to be admitted to a hospital and treated with intravenous fluids. I think the intravenous fluids kinds of answers a question like this one. What hospital treatment is likely to be started if a person is admitted with norovirus? I think that pretty much fits this here. Now imagine if you're skimming and scanning. The keywords in question number 13 have no keywords that match the phrase here. But if you understand what the question is asking for and what the text says, then you will be able to recognize how number 13's intravenous fluid seems to fit. And that is something that you cannot get with skimming and scanning because you are just looking for the exact same keywords. Again, what's most important is understand the text, understand the question, then answer it appropriately. It is a comprehension test. Now, if you're not sure if you've answered all the questions related to text B, you can always recheck. Like, did we see signs of dehydration in babies? No. Did we see what people can eat if they have norovirus? Yes. It turns out they can eat anything. Did we see any tests that might be done? No, we haven't seen any kinds of tests. But how long a person with norovirus must stay at home? Briefly, I think we saw something about people with signs and symptoms of norovirus must stay at home until 24 hours. So that's how long they have to stay at home for an entire day. So number 7 was actually answered in text B. Now, I don't think we saw anything about the majority of people have norovirus for how long. Nothing about heart rate. I haven't seen anything about electrolyte imbalance or watery bowel motions or blood pressure. So I think we've answered all the questions that can be answered by text B. And now we can move on to the next text. So notice I only read text B once, and I was already able to answer number 4, 5, 7, 8, 11, 13, 16, and 18 without skimming scanning. I just had to read once because I was understanding the text, and we're making really good time here. I mean, the actual test is only 15 minutes, but I'm explaining and talking while reading and answering questions, so I think this is very much doable in the test. Now, text C is saying, looking after a baby or child with norovirus. Most people suffer of norovirus for 1 or 2 days. So there, I think we have an answer for how long majority of people have norovirus. Copy paste it there, very easy. This means they will probably not visit the doctor. Babies and young children can be overcome with dehydration quickly due to diarrhea, vomiting, and so you need to closely monitor them. A baby should see a doctor if they have signs of dehydration, such as sunken eyes, sunken soft spot in their head, few tears, or when they cry, none at all, no tears. Dry mouth, fewer wet nappies, stark yellow urine, being less responsive, having temperature, or blood or mucus in your bowel motion. Other reasons a baby should be taken to hospital include being less responsive, having temperature, blood or mucus in your bowel motion. Now, for a child, you should see a doctor for dehydration if you have dry, cracked lips, if you don't pass urine much for the past 8 to 12 hours, if you're drowsy, irritable, very weak limb, or have no tears when crying. And other reasons, you should see a doctor if you have 8 to 10 watery bowel motions. So this keyword matches the one here, watery bowel motions. I see the 8 to 10 there, so I think that's a really easy fit for this question. Next up, diarrhea and vomiting at the same time, bowel motions, having blood or mucus, and then diarrhea that lasts for more than 10 days. Now, we just look at 1 to 7. We definitely saw the signs of diarrhea here, so that's easily text C. But I didn't see anything about the test that might be done to see if a person is dehydrated. So if I didn't find number 6 in text A, B, or C, even without reading that last text, I just know it's text B. I mean, there are only 4 texts, so process of elimination, that's it. No mention of heart rate, no mention of electrolyte imbalance, and no mention of blood pressure. So we've pretty much answered everything here in text C. And now we only have 1 text left to read, and guess what? We're just looking for 3 questions about blood pressure, heart rate, and electrolytes. And maybe you could skim and scan now. I see here that 100 beats per minute. So I could get this, copy paste this into the heart rate beats. I could say over, just to keep it safe. More complete answers are better. In terms of blood pressure, I don't see the keyword blood pressure right yet, but I see blood tests. I see low systolic. There we go. So we can copy paste that. And then finally, we have electrolyte imbalance, which I'm not seeing yet. But, you know, that's exactly why I don't like skimming and scanning so much, because it's so hard to find that keyword. Where's electrolyte imbalance? I can't see it. And then you're going down to reading again and again. You know, it's great if you see the keyword right away. But, you know, for me personally, I suck at skimming and scanning. Half the time I don't see those keywords. I just read chronologically. And it's easier for me to answer that question. So as you can see, it's really not about rereading the text again and again and skimming and scanning. I mean, I mean, look, I saw the word electrolyte imbalance, and I saw the keyword electrolyte imbalance here, and then I see a person may need a blank to see if they have an electric balance. But what's the answer? Abnormal blood levels of blood sodium, whatever. And then, you know, you're panicking, you're thinking, oh shit, it's over 15 minutes. I still don't understand the answer. Maybe the answer is blood sodium. And you know, that's why I really say to students, don't skim and scan. You're going to have a hard time. The answer is not blood sodium. It's not abnormal levels. In fact, the answer is nowhere near electrolyte imbalances. You have to actually read to understand the answer to number 15. And if we just read properly, it says here that blood tests can be carried out to diagnose if the person is dehydrated, and how badly. The blood tests check to see if there's a raised plasma serum osmolality, raised creatinine or blood urea nitrogen, and electrolyte imbalances such as abnormal levels of blood sodium. Now, after understanding that it turns out blood tests can be carried out, in fact, they're used to check electrolyte imbalances also, then now we understand that a person may need a blood test to see if they have an electrolyte imbalance. So, you know, I got that answer by reading it properly. If I just stuck to skimming and scanning, I would panic and wonder, oh no, I'm over 15 minutes, but I'm not getting the answer. And imagine, that's just with number 15. That's just one item that I attempted to skim and scan. Imagine having to skim and scan from the very top, each and every question. Would you really save time, or would you be wasting more time? And remember, I only read each text once. I read text A once, answered the question, then crossed it out. I read text B once, answered all the possible questions, then crossed it out. I also read text C only once, answered all the question, and then just moved on to the last text. And after answering all the questions in text D, I should have answered all the questions, and I'll only have read text A, B, C, and D only once. So which do you prefer? Reading the 4 texts and understanding them only once? Or having to reread text A, B, C, and D after reading number 1? Then rereading text A, B, and C, and D for number 2. Rereading text A, B, and C, and D for number 3. Then skimming and scanning. So I'll leave the decision up to you, whether you want to really keep skimming and scanning. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just about passing the exam, getting the job done. I hope you'll be able to do that. So that's it for this video. Thank you so much for your time, and good luck with your review.